Donald Trump and Republicans say they want to return education to the states, and that's why they're dismantling the Department of Education. But what's the real reason? It's a lot worse than you think. Welcome to Philosophy All Along. I'm a professional philosopher, and I like to use the tools of philosophy to help me understand things on a deeper level. So let's get into it. Okay, so first, this isn't about making it so that children don't have schools or don't go to schools. Ending the Department of Education isn't suddenly going to make it so that there are no more schools. That's kind of really the opposite of what they want to do. Now they're saying it's about, actually putting control back in the hands of the states. But it's not really that either. What it comes down to is money. There's a lot of money to be made off of education, and we're talking about billions and billions of dollars in two ways. One, simply the direct influx of cash. All of these companies know that right now people are getting a service that is technically free to them, right? They pay a couple of dollars a year out of their tax dollars. Wouldn't it be great if we could make them pay more? So what they want to do is privatize it. That's the real end goal, because then they'll have control of how much money people are having to pay and find ways to take those federal tax dollars and only spend it in the ways that the companies want. There's a lot of money to be made here, but there's also a lot of money to be made here by actually controlling the mode and method of your child's education. Corporations have been wanting to do this for a very long time. There are people that they want to be able to get better educations, be able to send them into finance and things like that. And then there's the people that they don't want learning about things like unions and things like their civil rights. They don't want them going to work at Starbucks and going, hey, wait a minute, this is an oppressive environment. They don't like that idea. They don't want them doing it. And that's why you see all these companies doing everything that they can, spending all this money trying to prevent unionization. And that the less students learn about their civil rights and their right to be able to do things like unionize, the easier it is for them. And the Department of Education gets in the way of that, partly by kind of unifying control over what is allowed and not allowed in terms of public schooling, but also by controlling funding. That's really the main thing that the Department of Ed does. It controls who gets funding and under what circumstances. So what it really comes down to is there's a whole lot of companies, a whole lot of for-profit companies that want to make money off of school, and the Department of Education's in the way, partly because they give money to needy students, to needy programs, and no one really has to think about it in a profit incentive kind of a way. It's a matter of we collect some tax dollars and we give it to who needs it the most. That has never been the way companies want to operate. They do not want to operate in terms of let's give it to the people who need it the most. We have to remember that the secret rule of business is try and find a way to make it so people have to buy your product. You want to find something that they need and cannot live without, or something that has become so necessary in society that they'll pay any amount of money to have it. So you want it to be things like food, you want it to be things like healthcare, increasingly things like the internet, the post office. Those things, they hate it when they become public, because when it's public, you can't charge as much as you want for it. And the money that could be going into for-profit is really just they're keeping it to a minimum so that it's just enough to meet the needs as we pay for it. Education is something people want for their children. They want to see their children succeed. They love their kids. And they also need their children to be somewhere safe, taken care of, and learning when they're at work. So this is a need, and there's all of these people at the very top who are going, there's so much money to be made here. Why aren't you letting us make it? And they really, 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 really hate the fact that your child getting an education means that your child is less easily manipulated by them. They want them just seeing commercials. They want them just being on TikTok, getting infused with whatever information they want to provide. The corporations, the billionaires, truly, truly believe that they belong in power, that they are the smartest, the best, and the brightest, and the rest of us are morons who need to learn their place. And the problem, the number one thing that's in the way of that right now is people going to K through 12 school and then going to universities and learning, oh, wait, no, there's lots of different ways of doing things. I don't have to necessarily do this kind of job. There's more for me out there than this. They hate it, and they're going to do everything that they can to try and end education as accessible for everybody on every possible level. What do I mean? Let's look at for-profit schools. Now, they have those both as colleges, and they also have them in K through 12. In fact, your child might be in a K through 12 for-profit school, and you may not even know it. They might call it a charter school, and they might say, oh, we're a school of choice. We're a school where you choose to bring your child to this better kind of school. What they don't really tell you is it's actually a corporation. It's a company, and their whole goal is actually to make money. But how do they make money? Because they'll also tell you, oh, no, but we're not trying to make money off of you. You don't have to pay $1 to go here, right? Your child isn't paying. So this isn't about us making money as a corporation. This is about you and your child's best education. Well, this is also not true. They do make money. How? From the federal government. And now you see where I'm going. What they do is they get a certain number of dollars per student enrolled at that school. The more students that they have enrolled at that school, the more money that they make. So they're always going to be trying to get more students at the school. But they are not going to be thinking about it in terms of we want to educate every student, because that's not how business works. Business has to think in terms of who's going to give us the most bang for our buck. So what you'll notice a lot of for-profit, and this is true of K through 12 schools in many cases that are for-profit, is they will do everything they can to find themselves in a position where they cannot accept low-achieving students, especially ones with special needs. You see, when you grade a school, schools have like A, B, C grading scales, and you choose your school maybe based on that. Well, usually what you have to do when you engage in testing to get that grade is you have to take all of the students into account, including those with severe mental differences. When that happens in a public school, well, sometimes it brings that school's grade down because they're taking in all of the students, period. Now, what a for-profit school might do is say, oh, dang, unfortunately, we don't have the facilities to help your special needs kid. You're going to have to take them to another school. And so what that does is they can say, we're not discriminating. We wish we could help them. We just can't. But it also means that when they get their school grade, it's only including a certain set of students. And they can say, look at the A school that we happen to be. The goal is never going to be, if it's a for-profit making company, the goal is never going to be that the child gets the most bang for their buck. In other words, every fewer dollar that you can spend on a child is more money that goes into some shareholder or CEO's pocket, that whoever owns that company is going to make money every time you cut a cost. And now we have, for some unknown reason, come to think that business is always better when you cut every cost. But that's not true, because when you work for your company and they start looking for people to lay off, you usually don't want them to lay you off. And that usually their reason for laying people off isn't because they want to make the business better and they want to make services better. Really, they're just trying to cut costs for themselves. They're not going to improve services. They're just going to make sure that whoever's at the top makes more money. So the whole idea then is you get paid for every student, and every one of those students is bringing dollars in because it's paid by the federal government. Now, all you have to do is make sure that you are spending less in terms of services, in terms of teacher salary, in terms of things like building libraries. Now you can make a profit. I've seen for-profit schools do things like close down the school library and tell all the teachers it's your job to go buy the books, build your own library in your own classrooms. Heck, I've seen them do things like reduce janitorial staff and then tell the teachers, well, it's your job to keep your own classrooms clean. But what they're really doing here is they're trying to find ways to cut costs, not so that they can invest more of it in the children. They're trying to find ways to reduce the amount of money that they're paying out so that more money goes to the stockholders. We have to remember that education in the United States as a public endeavor was not started as an idea where we were going to take every child and we're going to make sure that every child gets the best education that they can. It was actually initially proposed by big businesses, by people like Carnegie and these robber barons, because what they wanted was people who could work at factories who had the basic skills necessary to interact in that factory work. So you will see how they talk about, no, listen, we're not trying to make philosophers and lawyers and men of letters. We're trying to make factory workers. And so they needed things like people who could read and do basic arithmetic. And that's why that's still the main push today. Education has never been about making your child happy and successful and a full flourishing person from the perspective of the people who started it in the corporate world. Your the teachers, most of the administrators, those people are on the ground deeply invested in your child and in learning and education in general. But the system itself is one that is built upon the idea that we are supposed to create students, create citizens who just can move the money forward for the people in power. The problem is they haven't been getting the return that they wanted from it. As public education has grown and become more publicly funded and regulated by educators themselves, it's become less about making sure that businesses get what they want from education and more about actually trying to educate children so that they can flourish regardless of the economy and big business and so on and so forth. But what they really want, and you'll see this happen, is you take a small town, maybe they have a chemical plant of some kind in that town. What they want to be able to do is they want to be able to say, listen, we'll give some money to your school. We'll help you, build your science program there. But you can't teach any kind of chemistry other than the kind of chemistry that's used for this plant in our town. That's the deal. Business wants to be able to regulate education. They want to be able to control the education of your child. That's the reason, that's the purpose. Trump and the Republicans involved in this, they are being lobbied, they've been lobbied for a long time to stop allowing education that distracts people from business and prevents business from being able to squeeze as many dollars out of your child as they can. They want it to be a circumstance where if your child's going to get a robust education in things like finance or philosophy or whatever it happens to be, that you're going to have to pay a lot more for it. The whole point is always going to be, okay, you want a public education, it's going to be just enough to get your child working in my factory. And then that way you can keep a nice, clear hierarchy of those people who are in power and the vast majority of people who are not. And they won't have the educational access because they won't have the money to be able to pay for more. And you know this is true. Look at colleges and legacy seats. The majority of the seats are already reserved for the children of the wealthy who are able to afford themselves to be able to go. So everyone else is competing for that smaller percentage of seats. You look at the way fraternities work in these more expensive institutions and sororities. The whole goal is to keep money in the system amongst the people who are in power. So do not let them tell you that this is about giving more power to the states. No, this is about disempowering you, the voter, the people who are paying for education, disempowering you so that your children simply become an easily manipulated workforce that is desperate for any job, for any amount of pay, because they don't have the skill sets necessary to ever escape out of it. So if you like this video, please go ahead, like and subscribe. If you disagree, comment. I always like to see disagreement and thought and conversation. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.